there's an unpredictability to the stock market that you do not experience when you have your money sitting under the mattress or even in the bank. How did you work on your mindset to allow you to become an investor?
When you start saving and setting financial goals, you see the money where you want it to go. I took all the money that I saved during my internships opportunities and I went to Spain for a semester. So I think letting that money go,
Wow.
but also seeing the outcome of it helped me understand that, hey, you can let it go.
Probably not as glamorous as you'd like to hear, but I had to have my emergency fund first. And I'm like, okay, now I feel comfortable that this amount of money that I've already calculated, I know it's extra, I'm paying all my bills, I have my emergency fund, everything is set, I can now go invest.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to do the scary thing. All right, mi gente. On the podcast today, we have not one but two badass jefas in the room. Okay. And we're going to be talking about something that I'm very passionate about. Not necessarily something that I teach extensively, but is really a fundamental part of my journey, and that is investing. Okay. So I've been an investor since 2007 when I graduated college, started working in corporate. But if I'm being honest, I really didn't know what the hell I was doing until about 10 years later when I discovered the financial independence movement and realized that investing is not just like to be old and retired sitting on your porch, in your little rocking chair, but you can actually invest your way to financial freedom. You can invest way before the age of 65. And I have two mujeres who have reached financial independence already before the age of 30, and they're going to explain to you exactly how you can do that too. So Wilmarie, Adriana, welcome to the show. They are better known as Investing Jevas.
Thank you, Jannese, for having us. We're excited to be here.
It is an honor, okay? First of all, the fact that we have two Boricua baddest investors on the show is like literally the entire reason why I started this podcast. Because when I was first learning about investing, I could not find anybody other than like boring ass old white men who were talking about this, right? And so I want to first dive into what you guys do and the inspiration for the platform. And well, Mari, maybe you can kick us off.
Yeah, so I'm Wilmarie and this is Adriana, and we are the faces behind Investing Jevas. So we're personal finance educators helping Jevas y Jevas make the most of their 9 to 5 income and start investing so that they can achieve financial stability and independence. I mean, of course, we're committed to sharing this financial wisdom in arroz y habichuelas because at the same time, given that Puerto Rico has its own rules and regulations when it comes to investing and the information is not as accessible to the one applicable to the US, we aim to bring awareness to these differences, helping other fellow Boricuas living on the island build wealth.
I love that. So, how long has the platform existed?
Since 2022, I mean, we were talking about it for a while. We were learning and going through the process for a few months or years, and it was not until probably, I mean, everything was started during the pandemic, actually, when Adriana talked to me about this investing course, and I wanted to join her. And honestly, I thought I had everything figured out before then. I was tracking my expenses since college. I had a couple of investings accounts like robo advisors. I had my high yield savings account. I have my 401k. And I really, in my mind, I thought that's all I had to do. But it was not until Adriana talked to me about it, about this investing class, and I decided to join her, that everything changed. I had the reality check
Mm.
of my life.
What did you realize at that moment? Like, what did you learn that was like, why the hell don't I know this?
Yeah, like I didn't know anything about fire. I didn't know that it was even possible to retire early. I didn't know anything about becoming a millionaire or like sign me up, please. Like, how do I get there? Because I didn't know all of those things were possible. I thought you could only be a billionaire or become a millionaire by playing Powerball. Really.
Mm. Como mucha gente de nuestra comunidad, right? Like, I know I've seen my parents playing the lottery for the past 40 something years, and I'm like, we're still waiting. But in the meantime, I know that based on what I've been doing financially with my investments and stuff, like I actually will become the first millionaire in my family, which is crazy to say. Pero es importante que la gente saben que that is not the only way. And actually, the systems that we have in this country to invest are some of the most like quote unquote guaranteed ways to make that happen if you understand how to use the system, if you understand the power of compound interest and the power of financial independence, which we're going to talk more about today. So, Adriana, tell me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think like really surrounding yourself with like-minded people will help you actually internalize that that's possible.
That's why I think the work that you guys are doing is so important, right? Because I know for me, it was different when I realized that there were other mujeres who were doing this versus feeling like I'm the only person who's talking about this in my community, in my family. Everybody's like, girl, what the hell are you talking about retiring in your 40s? Like, quien te crees, you know? And so for me, when I got around other people who were pursuing financial independence, that's when I stopped feeling like a crazy person. Now, Adriana, I want to know from you, like, what is the connection between you and Wilmarie? Like, how did you guys meet? How did this become a thing that you guys are like now building together?
Sure. So actually, we're best friends since college, right? We're both electrical engineering majors. We met in college. We went through the college grind together, and we've been best friends ever since. And like Wilma was saying, I had this coming to Jesus moment during the pandemic where the basically the algorithm got to me, and I was exposed to personal finance gurus out there, and I was like, wait, what is this? This is a whole new world. I need everybody to know about this. I need everybody to learn about this. So I was talking to Wilma about it. But before that, even though we were best friends since college, we never really talked about finances, right? We never really talked about our income, about the offers that we got for internships or for our full time jobs, right? That wasn't something that we discussed, although we were in constant communication almost every day, right, as best friends. So that's how kind of this came about. And I said if we didn't even know what how to well I am going to talk for myself because I know Wilma was budgeting since college, but for me, I didn't even know what a budget was or how to do a proper budget. And I was like if I'm in this space, likely more people are here too, and
Hmm.
we need to share this, right? I don't think Puerto Ricans are talking about this. It was never something that was discussed in my home, at least.
Yeah.
I'd never heard about all this or that it was even possible for us. So we definitely need to share this. And that's kind of the inspiration of behind Investing Jevas too.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd add is we need to make it simple, right? They try to overcomplicate everything. Everything sounds so fancy and they use all these terms and it turns out that it's just like a language that you need to learn and that's it.
Mhm. Yeah. No, it's so true, right? And I'm curious for you guys because you mentioned you didn't learn about this growing up. And I think most people who listen to this podcast can agree that they did not learn about wealth building and, like, what the millionaires of the world are doing to actually get to that point. So I'm curious for both of you, and I'll start with you, Wilma. What did you learn about money growing up, or what maybe did you see or experience that formed what you thought about money before you learned more about it?
So, of course, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico along my three siblings. We were the typical middle class family where my parents had to make a lot of sacrifices to raise three successful kids. I personally experienced the classic saver versus spender dynamic at home. My mom is a saver and a super intentional spender. But my dad, he's more of a you only live once, let's enjoy the moment and worry about the future some other day, which isn't necessarily bad if your money goals are aligned. But in this case, well, I'll let him speak for him. But I definitely adopted my mom's money saving mindset. As a child, I remember never wanting to spend any money that was gifted to me. I used to stash it in my drawer, and let me tell you, Puerto Rico's humidity weather was not kind to those bills. Sometimes they will smell like mold before I finally spend them. Even then,
Wow.
I somehow understood the value of saving that cash. I didn't know anything about money. All I knew was if I held onto them long enough, I was gonna be able to buy whatever I wanted.
Mm.
But I also remember my mom for the longest time. She used to give me $1 a day which I stored in an ice cream bucket sealed with tape because early withdrawals were not an option. And then I remember she pulled my my oldest sister into this plan because she was already working at the time. So of course she can also give me $8. And in no time she had me, the baby of the house, tracking them down, collecting those $1 payments like my life depended on it. And I know it sounds super silly, but this taught me the to set saving goals early on. But more importantly, how small but consistent contributions can grow over time. And don't ask me, I
That's
think, I
hilarious.
mean, I don't know if I ever spent that money, but it worked.
You were collecting los impuestos de la
Mm-hmm,
casa.
mm-hmm.
I love that. What about you, Adriana? What do you remember?
Well, I'd say I have two siblings, an older brother and a younger brother, and we were definitely encouraged to save from a young age, right? So that was always something that was mentioned. Ahórralo, no lo gaste. And whenever we were gifted money during holidays or birthdays, or we got money from doing chores for the family, like washing Titi's car or washing grandma's windows or mowing grandpa's lawn, right? We would you take that money and give it to abuelo, and he
Yeah.
would deposit it in the bank account that he had set up for us growing up. Now, although nunca nos faltó nada, there were often scarcity conversations happening, right? You'd hear, we don't have money for that. No, 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 we can't buy that. It's too expensive, right? And not just the conversations. There was actual scarcity. There were points I remember where money was tight. And I'll share one experience, right? I remember being in the car with my mom and my siblings, and we were almost out of gas. She was telling us we don't have any gas. I don't know if we're going to reach the gas station.
Mm.
We ultimately did, and once we got there, she was like, okay, everybody get out of the car and start trying to find coins within between the seats, under the seats, because we need to like reach at least $2 to put in this car. Mind you, there wasn't cell phones at the time, right? And gas was a lot cheaper, but I remember that, right? So there were points where I remember that money was tight, and that likely my parents were living paycheck to paycheck or racking up credit card debt, or even surviving with loans, right? Because again, we were three children, it's expensive, we were going to private school. So I that's part of what I remember. The other thing is that there wasn't really any financial literacy shared or guidance, right? Not at home or at school, like I said. So it wasn't something that we talked about in my family, other than what I said about, hey, whatever money you get, you save it and you don't spend it.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, right, my parents worked their butts off to give us everything we needed and more. And it still amazes me how they were able to afford bringing us up. And, um, I'll always be grateful for their sacrifices, which
Yeah,
I
it's
can better
always
appreciate now.
amazing like what our parents have been able to accomplish with so little resources and so little access to financial literacy. And it's interesting that you guys both have this very similar experience that a lot of people share in our community, and I talk about this in my book, is this idea of hoarding money, of being afraid to like let it go because you're afraid that you're not going to be able to get it back. And I think that behavior, right, that like scarcity mindset is something that is very difficult for people to confront when they're thinking about investing, right? Because when we look at what happens with your money when you invest it, some days it can be great and some days it could be down 40-50%, especially if our stupid president wants to like go on Twitter or Truth Social and start talking about
Yeah.
fucking tariffs, right? So there's an unpredictability to the stock market that you do not experience when you have your money sitting under the mattress or even in the bank. And I think oftentimes that is the biggest barrier for a lot of people, is just learning how to adopt this abundance mindset that is required for you to even open up your mind to investing. So I'm curious for both of you, and I'll start with you, Wilma. How did you work on your mindset to allow you to become an investor?
I think I mean, I think it's because when you start saving and setting financial goals, you see the money where you want it to go. You see the outcome of it. Like I remember back in college, that's where everything began. Basically, my older sister taught me how to track my expenses, and I have been tracking my expenses since then. that gave me enough discipline to study abroad in Spain. I took all the money that I saved during my internships opportunities and I went to Spain for a semester. So I think letting that
Wow.
money go, but also seeing the outcome of it helped me understand that, hey, you can let it go. You don't need to stash it in your drawer anymore. But then once I
Hmm.
got to investing, I saw the same because right now I'm doing behind the scenes, I'm doing long term and short term investing. So you can see both. Like it
Hmm.
gets you
I
to
love
a
that.
lot of places in the short term, but even more in the future.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to do the scary thing before you actually know if it's going to work. And I think the good thing is that we do have a lot of historical data to support the fact that, like, investing, especially for the long term, is pretty much, you are quote unquote guaranteed to see that return on investment as long as you wait at least 20 to 25 years, currently with the data that we have. So it's one of these things where, yes, it feels scary, but like you mentioned, when you start seeing the actual fruits of your labor, if you will, it becomes almost addictive. Like, now it's funny because I can drop like $1,000 in the market, like, whatever, no big deal, right? I'm just like, $1,000, ITOT, whatever. But have I ever like actually gone shopping for myself and spent $1,000? Very rarely, right? Maybe I bought the a Louis Vuitton bag when I became debt free to just like mark that occasion. But like, your girl is out here shopping at Ross and at the thrift store. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just a different perspective when you understand like where the value of your money can have the most impact. And I would argue that there is no better way to make your money work harder for you than investing, right? Um, how about you, Adriana? So, what mindset stuff have you had to overcome in order for you to get on this financial independence journey?
Definitely the I have to save everything, right? And I think the way I overcame this, and it's probably not as glamorous as you'd like to hear, but I had to have my emergency fund first and
Mm,
know that that was enough to cover X amount of months and that I'm okay with that so that I can then start investing. And this was early on, right? And I'm like, okay, now I feel comfortable that this amount of money that I've already calculated, I know it's extra, I'm paying all my bills, I have my emergency fund, everything is set, I can now go invest. Obviously, I'm much more comfortable now, but when I was starting off, that was one of those things that you're like, wait, you're putting money where and doing what? Um, Definitely scary, but if you have everything set, that kind of helped with the mindset of I know enough about investing. I know how this is something that is going to be the best in terms of the growth for of my money. I have my emergency funds. We're okay. Like we can do this.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an important point that you bring up too, because oftentimes there is kind of a struggle that people are facing where it's like, if you have debt, do you tackle that first? If you don't have an emergency fund, do you tackle that first? Should you be investing anyway, even if you don't have an emergency fund, or if you have a bunch of debt? And I think it's obviously like not a one size fits all approach, but I think the most important thing to do is to have that safety net, because if you don't have an emergency fund, it's going to be more than likely that your debt is going to increase, because all you need is one emergency to kind of set that in motion, right? And so when you give yourself that financial cushion and you know that you can handle the unpredictable things that are going to happen in life, that can help you not derail your entire financial situation. So I think that's a great reminder that at the bare minimum, you got to have a cash cushion before we start thinking about then deploying excess funds into your investment accounts. Because otherwise, if you start investing without an emergency fund, you'll probably have to pull that money out. And then, like, what was the point of all that, too, right? And there are consequences to that, especially if you're accessing retirement accounts. Okay, so let's talk about financial independence, because I know that you mentioned, Wilma, that you had no idea that, first off, this was a thing, that early retirement was a thing. Um, what do you think is the most common reaction from people when you talk to them about the financial independence, retire early movement? Because I know for me, um, I get a bunch of like eye rolls. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, sure, fucking retire in your 40s. Cool, keep dreaming. Have you experienced the same thing with folks that in your community?
Yeah, the first thing is, ¿estás loca? Like, retirarte
Mhm.
antes de los 50, 40, that's not even a thing, And
Yeah.
it's hard to say, but you get a lot of that from your family too. Like they're not used to that, and for you to get to that point, you need to say no a lot of times, and they usually don't understand that. Like establishing
Yeah.
financial goals and sticking to them is really tough when you grew up being codependent and saying yes to everyone in your family. So I think
Hmm.
when I say, yeah, I want to retire early, that's the first thing I hear. I mean, it's not something that it has been normalized, and we need to start doing that. We need to share with, especially in Puerto
Hmm.
Rico. I
Yeah.
think the mindset in Puerto Rico, it's different. So all of these things are new to all of us. I mean, it was for both of us. So I think we need to keep
Hmm.
getting our point across so that they can understand, not only with words, just with numbers. I mean, numbers don't lie. So if you show them how to get there, I think they'll eventually open up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that has turned a lot of people off when they first learn about the movement, and I know it was my experience, was just like the actual number, right? When you calculate your FI number and you see, $1.52 million, and you're just like, how the fuck? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, how is that even possible? Um, I think that number just gives people this visceral reaction where they're just like, bueno, eso no va a pasar. So, like, I'm not even going to bother. Right. So, what do you say to people who have that reaction that they're just like, this feels like a dream? This feels unrealistic. What if it's too late? What if I'm too old? Right. Like, what are all those things that people will tell you when you're just like, no, but you can do this? What's your advice?
You need to know your number, break it down. It's not like, yeah, you need to get to 2 millions because you're going to be spending 60K per year when you retire. I think you need to show them the investing calculator, to show them how the stock market has grown over years, that is actually achievable. I think that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah, I think that's an important reminder because people see that 2 million and they think I have to physically save $2 million, and it's like, no, y'all. The market is going to do most of that work for you, but the point is you got to get started and you have to be consistent, right? That is what I think the disconnect that a lot of people have. It's like, no, it's not you saving all that money. It's
Once you
a little bit.
understand how compounding interest works,
Yeah.
your mind's blown and you're in it. Like, right? I think that's one of the most important things,
It's
having
true.
folks understand the power and the magic of compounding interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you guys check the episode description, I'm actually going to link the investor.gov compound interest calculator, which is my favorite. It's super easy to use. All you have to do is put in your initial starting amount, how much you're going to contribute monthly, do some estimates around what you think your return is going to be based on historical data, and it'll tell you over a specific period of time, like how your money could theoretically grow. And I know once I did that calculation for my own financial independence journey, I was like, this is actually possible, right? And so let's talk more about the coast financial independence, which is something that I did not initially learn about when I started going down this rabbit hole, but I would argue that coast financial independence is probably one of the more reachable versions of financial independence for more people. um how do we start? Well, first of all, let's define coast financial independence. Tell me what it actually means.
So Coast-Fi is basically when you have enough invested that you no longer need to contribute to your accounts, but you will still reach financial independent by the regular retirement age, right, of 65. So that's basically what Coast-Fi means, right? And to your question on how do we get there and what do we do, right, which was what you were alluding to, is depending on what you have access to, right? If you're somebody that has access to a 401k, then that's definitely an investment account that you want to leverage and want to make the most out of. So get the match from your employer if your employer is providing a match. And make sure that if you can maximize that, you do that, right? If you are US based, look into Roth IRA options And also, then whatever you have left, you need to be looking into brokerages, right? Or HSAs.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the concept of post financial independence, I think, is so interesting because that really is like kind of what the financial institutions are trying to teach people when they tell them, like invest 20% of your income for, the majority of your working career, and then you can theoretically retire at 65. But what I think is missing from that conversation is that if you start sooner, if you start like, if you're 18 years old, if you're like listening to this podcast, shout out to you. But I think most of us get exposed to these concepts at least like when we start working, right? In our early 20s. Like if you do this for theoretically like 10 years when you're in your 20s and early 30s, there's a very, very good chance that you can reach financial independence and be able to retire way before 65. So the point is, the sooner the better. The more time that you have on your side, the less of a heavy lift it's going to be. Now, for folks who are just learning about this concept, right, and they're in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, is post financial independence still possible?
Yes, definitely, right? You the sooner you start investing, like you were saying, the better. The sooner the compound interest is going to start doing its magic. The sooner you're going to see the growth on your investments. It's just that likely you're going to have to be investing a little bit more, right, depending on that age. But the point of this, right, even if you don't reach close fi, you'll still get a lot closer to having a healthier retirement fund, right? Let's say that you're at a point where you think you can't reach close fi, which is debatable, but think about it, right? Anything that you put towards investments is going to grow and it's going to be used towards your retirement. So it's worth doing nonetheless, right?
Yeah. I think that's an important message, right? Because it's very easy to feel defeated when you feel like you started too late or you haven't started at all. And it's almost like, well, what's the point because it's so late? And I am always of the belief that, like, if you retire with a couple $100,000 in the bank versus like zero, if you do nothing, you're definitely in a much better position than most people, right? And so, not doing anything is basically what we see a lot of our elders experiencing, where like they literally have to work until they die because there is no other option. And so seeing that, having that physical example of what it looks like to not be prepared, even if you do something, it's better than nothing. And I want y'all to like really absorb that, because the only powerlessness that we have in this situation is if you let just like your personal circumstances, your timeline be the reason why you never start, right? I think it's like, what's the point of beating yourself up if you didn't know about this shit? I mean, nobody's teaching us about this, right? So what you can't do what you don't know, but now that you know, do better.
Definitely be graceful with yourself too, right? So once you know better, do better,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And work on that mindset, right? Let's not have shame over this.
Yeah.
Let's pick up where we're at and start. Just start.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk. Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
if it's not financial independence, you can still get somewhere. Like you can maybe have a healthier emergency fund. You can have a part-time job. It doesn't need to be 0 or 100 at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so one of the very overwhelming parts of investing for many people is just like selecting the accounts that you should be using. Do you guys have a specific order of operations that you recommend to people to like look at if you have access to XYZ before, these other options? What would you recommend, Wilma?
Yeah, I think I mean, I live in the US right now, so I will start with my 401k, sponsored by my employer, especially that match. You really need to hit that match because you don't want to leave money on the table. And then that will be my first step, and then as a second step, I will go to a Roth IRA because I mean, that's basically um so this year it's a 7K you can add onto your retirement. Basically that's the easiest because you add tax-free money to it, and then I mean it grows tax-free. Like you put in after tax money and then it grows tax-free, and then you can go back as a third
Hmm.
option to your 401k and max it out. And then if your employer, if you have a high deductible plan, you will have the opportunity to contribute to an HSA. Then I will go to that one. And then finally, if there's any leftover money, I'll go to a brokerage. So basically, long story
I love
short,
that.
take all your put money on all the tax advantage accounts first, and then if there's anything left, just go to a brokerage. But it also depends on your
Hmm.
money goals, and if you don't want to wait until you are 59.5, or you want to do something before that age, then you might need to go to a brokerage straight. So
Hmm. This is why I think it's so important to define what your post retirement life looks like, right? And so in my book, I have a chapter on financial independence. And one of the first questions that I ask people to think about is like, what does your retirement look like? Because it's not going to be a one size fits all approach when you're trying to pursue this. Again, like you mentioned, a lot of these tax advantaged accounts, the retirement accounts like a 401k or a Roth, there are requirements to be able to access this money without penalties, right? And oftentimes that means waiting until you're age 59 and a half. So if your goal is to retire before 59 and a half, you want to have a pot of money that you can access without penalties. And that's where your brokerage account comes in, right? Another really big part of early retirement is health insurance. What are we going to do to be able to pay for a doctor? So if you have access to a high deductible insurance plan and you have access to a health savings account or an HSA, you can use that account to save for medical expenses that you can use for your healthcare premiums, your deductibles, out of pocket costs. And that is a tax advantaged account that you can use. So it's important to understand the functions, right? The features, the bells and whistles of these different accounts, and then create that customized investment plan for you so that it makes sense for your specific goals. In the case for anybody that's retiring before traditional retirement age, I would definitely recommend like focusing a lot of energy on your brokerage account because that is going to be the thing that you're going to have to pull money out of before you are eligible to get money out of these retirement accounts. So um, let's talk about the actual investments, right? Because obviously one of the things that overwhelms people too is not only like what accounts do I invest in, but like what the hell are we buying? And there's nothing that makes me more sad when I get a DM from a follower of the show that's like, I know you said I should be investing and I have been doing it, but my account's not doing anything. And I'm like, did you buy anything? And they're like, what? I thought you just put money in the Roth and it's just supposed to, grow to $1 million. I'm like, ma'am, that's not how this works, okay? An investment account is not like a bank account where you just put your money in there and let it sit. There's a second step that you have to take after putting your money in there, which is buying investments. What strategies do you guys use? Are you index fund investors? Are you ETF investors? Do you follow the principles in a book like The Simple Path to Wealth? Are you target date fund fans? Let's talk about what's actually in the portfolio. I'll start with you, Adriana.
So for me, I'm definitely all about the index funds, and it's what we share via Investing Jevas, right? It's what we recommend. Go for the invest index funds, right? So index funds are basically a group of stocks that you can go and purchase under one single ticker symbol, right? So they basically allow you to be completely diversified, which reduces the risk that's tied to investing. And they also have low expense ratios, right? So these fees where you're being charged for the management of the fund, they're really low when it comes to index funds. So that's what we recommend, right? We want to be diversified, we want to be as secured as possible, and we want to pay as little fees as possible. So index funds is what we recommend all the way.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
I know,
The
Wilma, you have a different approach to your
Yeah,
personal
let's hear it,
investments,
Wilma.
so
What's in your
maybe we,
portfolio?
yeah.
I mean, I'm a fan of doing a lot of things at the same time. So you don't need to marry with long-term investing at once and then just sit there. As Adriana mentioned, I mean, I'm a fan of the three fund portfolio. I mean, you can diversify, it's perfect for retirement. Basically, and what it means is that you invest in the total stock market of the United States, then the total international market, and also the bond market. So it's just a little bit of everything, and that way you're just diversifying your risk. But there are other
Hmm.
options too. Like if you have some money, if you feel comfortable with your retirement savings already, or you got even more money and you don't know what to do with it, you can start playing with um, specific stocks. I mean, if you know about a company, if you feel confident they're gonna do well in the future. I mean, I'm not telling you to put all the eggs in one basket, but just you can just play with that too. And also, um,
Yeah.
even with crypto, I know that's not something fully um, and that's not something that's a challenging topic, I guess. So I'm not saying you need to invest.
It's just so new. So a lot of people just don't have the kind of the knowledge behind what they're actually investing in.
My point is that you can invest in a lot of things. It doesn't mean that you're gonna invest in only one thing and the other ones are wrong. I mean, you can do many things and still be on your path to retirement.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the important things to understand about the investment selection process is like how hands-on do you want to be? Right? If you're like the kind of person that you literally want to like set it and forget it and never think about this shit again, definitely a target date fund, because that is going to be diversified according to your desired retirement age, and it's going to self adjust. It is literally like that rotisserie is going to let you know when the chicken is ready, right? And the chicken is your retirement. So if you just want to be like, I just literally don't want to think about what the hell I'm doing, just want to click a button and have it go, that's great. Right? The uh three fund portfolio is also another great option. There's so many different ways to do this that I think it's just important to like pick one and understand that your process can evolve as you become more educated, right? Like I started with target date funds because I didn't know what the hell any of these ticker symbols meant. And then when I started learning, I was like, oh, okay. I started learning about definitions between like a growth fund and a balanced fund and a value fund and a moderate investment, aggressive. Like there's so much terminology that you have to understand to really feel competent, that's why the education process is so important, right? That has to be kind of the fundamentals of this entire journey, because the more educated you are, the more empowered you are, and also the less likely you are to be taken advantage of. Because one thing that I noticed that happens a lot in our community is that people are just like, ay, pero yo no entiendo esto, so I'm just going to pay somebody to do it for me. But you actually don't even understand what the hell you're paying somebody to do when you give them your money to invest, when you're paying a fund manager. You don't understand what they're charging you, why they're buying what they're buying. Are they even like actually licensed to do this shit? Right. And so when you come from that educated, empowered place, nadie te va a coger a pendejo. So that's why it's important. Like, even if at some point your goal is like, I want to have millions in the bank and I want to have somebody fucking investing it for me, that's fine. But you have to actually understand what you're paying this person to do so that you can keep an eye if things are just not looking the way that they should be looking.
And
Um,
for my Boricuas out there living on the
yes.
islands, right, one of the frustrating things is that once you learn about this, you see how the options that we have in Puerto Rico are so limited, right? Usually it's actively managed investment products. You don't get to choose what your capital is invested in. You have a cap on your gains, meaning that the fine print is not designed for wealth building, right? So that's
Mm,
one thing that we need to keep a lookout and that we definitely need to learn because to your point, Denise, we need to understand what's happening. And like I said, most options in Puerto Rico are not designed for wealth building. So learning about this is important so that we can.
wow. They see, I didn't even know that. And I knew that there was something weird going on when I bought my first piece of property in Puerto Rico. And I'm like, why are none of the banks that we have in the United States on the island, right? You're not going to find Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo. None of these banks operate in Puerto Rico. It's a completely different financial system, which I don't fucking get it. They talk about, it's for like, money laundering and blah blah to prevent that, because at some point Puerto Rico was like a big entry point for drugs and whatever the fuck. My point is, it's like this is part of the United States, but the financial system is completely different. And obviously with the way that they've set it up, it is meant to keep people under control, especially
Yes.
when you think about something like Act 60, right? Where they are incentivizing Americans to come and move to Puerto Rico, to get all these amazing tax benefits, 4% corporate tax, 0% tax on dividend income. But if you're born and raised in the island, you don't have fucking access to these perks. Like, make it make sense to me, okay? Make it make sense. Like, you can leave Puerto Rico, you can be off the island for, I think it's like a decade, and then you can come back and take advantage of this shit. But you basically need to leave the place that you know for an extended period of time to even qualify for this shit, which is absolutely fucking insane. Right. And so you
And
can
there's
see that the
other,
system is rigged.
yeah, there's other things almost as enraging as that one, right? So I'll give you an example because I know we just talked about what is that order of investment account options that we should follow. And Wilma mentioned the US, but I want to call out that there aren't true good options for Roth IRA in Puerto Rico. And what I mean by that is that we don't necessarily qualify automatically to invest in Roth IRA accounts with US brokers, right? So that's
Mm,
something that we need to watch out for. If you are living on the island, you need to definitely consult your CPA to make sure that you qualify to invest in accounts such as, the main brokers that we know, Fidelity, Vanguard, because they are not part necessarily of El Fideicomiso de Bancos de Puerto Rico, and that's something that we need to make sure that you qualify for. So that's another super powerful account option, which we just said your growth can be retired or withdrawn, retirado, quiero decir, without paying taxes on the growth.
hmm.
And we don't have access to good options, right? So it's
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 wild.
crazy.
And so when people say that money is not political, it's like absolutely fucking is, because these are all laws. These are all policies that have been written by politicians. And this is why we cannot talk about money without talking about politics. And reminder, if your laws where you live are shitty, it's probably because your politicians are shitty. And so that should incentivize you to vote.
Yes, please go vote. Another thing I'd call out, right, just to bring awareness to this too, is the differences in the contribution limits, Janice.
Mm,
There is, like, for example, the 401k. In US, I think currently the maximum that you can contribute is 23.5K versus in Puerto Rico, it's 15K. Right? We're talking about 8.5K difference
wow.
that you cannot contribute, right? It's a missed opportunity to reduce your taxable income for that year. And not to mention what that means compounded, right? If we go to the calculator, I've done this. It's if we calculate around 700 or $708 a month over the span of 40 years, we're talking about $2.2 million, right?
Wow.
So it's definitely something impactful. And similarly for IRAs, the cap in US is currently around 7K, I think,
Yeah.
and for Puerto Rico, it's 5K. So again, a lower opportunity to reduce your taxable income.
Well,
uh,
this frustrates me so much. This is crazy.
Recommended in the US, of course, it's the HSA. But although the Internal Revenue Code or Código de Rentas Internas de Puerto Rico la menciona, I mean, and for those that do not know what the Código de Rentas Internas is the primary body of tax law governing the island. It has wording on HSAs. We found it, but no employers
Mm,
are offering this. So they acknowledge the
wow.
existence, but we cannot really do anything about it.
Holy shit. What about high yield savings accounts? Is that a thing on the island?
You can, yes, you can have high yield savings account. And what I mean by that, you can access them via the banks that we have in the US, and we can submit the 1099 form that you get at the end of the year. But there aren't really good options on the island either, right?
Mhm.
With the banks that we have on the island, the interests are whack, like
Yeah.
they're terrible. So that's another thing. You bring
Yeah,
up a
it's
good
true.
one.
I just opened my first Puerto Rican bank account, and like the fees are crazy. The paperwork is stupid. Most of the time you have to actually physically go into the office. I'm like, it is 2025.
Yes.
Why the fuck can I fill
Yes.
out an online application? Like, you're really trying to make me get on a plane to open a bank account. It was absolutely insane, the whole process. And it's like, if you're a business on the island, I olvídate eso. Like, oh my god. You it's they I feel like they really make it hard so that people just don't do it, and like the people in power, the people with money can just keep staying in power and fucking doing whatever they want to do, you know? And it's very similar to what's going on in the United States too.
Yeah, one thing I'd say is that, Jennese, if we think about it, we're likely one generation removed from poverty, right? I know
Mhm.
that's the truth for my family. It's the
Yeah,
truth for my neighbors, right?
yeah,
Most people, this is grandparents here, were living in poverty with, you know, dirt floor houses. So it's new. It's something
yeah.
relatively new. We're learning about this just now, and we definitely need to make the choices, the correct choices when voting, so that our laws reflect what we now need and what we want, which is to build wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk to the folks who are like, okay, I'm inspired by this conversation, pero ahora mismo me siento como overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. Let's talk to the folks who have access to 401ks or equivalent type plans. And then let's talk to the people who don't. Maybe the entrepreneurs, the self employed people, the ones that don't have traditional employment, which I know in Puerto Rico is very common, right? Like the side hustle economy. I feel like we invented the fucking side hustles, okay? Because everybody got a side hustle. Somebody's selling limber, alguien está arreglando ropa, alguien está vendiendo empanadillas. Like that's just what we do. And so I think, it's important for us to talk to those folks too, because oftentimes that is the reality for a lot of people. So let's talk to the corporate baddies first. Like, what should they be doing if they have access to a workplace retirement account, Wilma?
Before we start talking about accounts, I will tell both of them, corporate and business owners, to work on their mindset. Because when you start looking at your finances, you are going to see all the things that you did not do or got completely wrong. So you need to become familiar with your money blueprints so you can stop any limiting beliefs that are gonna come your way. Because understanding your relationship with money will help you reframe it. That's the only way. Because I know that feeling guilty and
Mhm.
ashamed along this process is normal, but this is the time to change it. Yeah. So I'll say work on your mindset, but if now you're in a corporate environment, you need to understand what your 401k is doing. Like back then, I didn't know I was paying a lot of fees investing through my 401k. So please, your number one step will be to go to that 401k, make sure you're investing, you're getting to that match that the employer is providing, and then you need to know and understand the investment.
Yeah, I love that. All right.
One thing I would
Go
add,
ahead,
right,
Adriana.
to the corporate girlies out there that are already getting their match and that they want to max out their 401k is look at the fine print with your employer, right? If you are maxing out your 401k earlier than the end of the year and your employer doesn't do that, I forgot the name of what it's called, but it's like the reconciliation that they pay whatever difference it was,
Mhm.
you're missing out on employer match, right? If you're maxing it out mid-year and not doing payments per check, per your income check, right? Every time you get a check, then you're missing out on a match. So that's another thing that I look out for that I actually learned the hard way.
Oh, so if you max out your 401k before the end of the year, they have to give you like that full company match even after you stop contributing? Is that what you're saying?
Some do and some don't. So if your contract says
Oh.
that they don't have to, then you missed out on it, right? If you decide,
Mm.
oh, I am gonna, I'm able to max it out because based on my income, I can give, I don't know, 30%, 20%, whatever it is, then, and you're maxing it out prior to the end of the year, then you're missing out on employer match. And if
Ew,
the
they owe
company
you
says,
money, honey.
mm-hmm,
Dang.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow.
So that's one thing to look out for.
Okay. Yeah, so that's important to note that, or I would say, like, maybe if you know that you want to max out and that you're going to be able to, and your job doesn't offer that like reconciliation process, then make sure that you're contributing a specific amount of money so that you're basically matching it out by your last paycheck of the year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the strategy.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I think some good questions to ask either HR or your plan provider around that would be like, what's the matching formula for our company 401k? Is the match calculated per paycheck or annually? Do we offer a year-end true-up of any missed match?
True up. Yes, that's
Or can you provide a breakdown of my contributions versus the company match just so that you can see that you're getting everything that you need? Because oftentimes people don't even understand like that is part of your total compensation package, y'all. Like that's literally a part of your paycheck. And who the fuck says no to free money? Really? Like let's be real. Just because you don't see it, in your check does not mean that it does not have very powerful effects on growing your income. I remember when I left my corporate career to become a full-time entrepreneur, and I cashed out my 401k because I was going to roll it over into my solo 401k as a self-employed person. And I was like, I can't even believe I saved that much money. And it was because the company match was like doing so much of this heavy lifting. You don't realize like how powerful that stuff can be, because, you know, it's can add up to thousands of dollars a year that you didn't have to do anything other than just like do your small part of just automating your contributions. So it's important to not let these benefits like just sit around, right? And so I think if you have access to an HSA, like find out, you know, if you have access to um even things like tuition reimbursement, y'all, like get the shit that these companies offer, because you are literally giving them years of your life. You must take advantage of them the same way that they try to take advantage of you. You know, best believe I was using every damn vacation day, every sick day, sign me up for the courses. I'm doing the trainings, I'm going to the conferences. Like, hell to the no. We are not going to be wasting time and energy here. I'm sucking them dry. Okay.
And Jenny, something you
All
mentioned,
right.
it's about
Yeah.
finding out from your employers. It's for me, it was my case too. Like I didn't know you could invest the money in your HSA until like 5 years in. So right now, I don't even use my
Wow.
HSA at all. I just invested. I invest all of it and just pay my medical expenses out
Hmm.
of pocket. But I didn't know about it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of perks to that account, including the fact that after age 65, I believe you can convert it into a traditional IRA. So you can use the funds for things other than medical expenses, which is nice. I actually use it in a way where I try to estimate my medical costs for the year and then like save up to that amount. So, for example, last year when I knew I was going to have a baby, I was like, I'm going to max out my HSA because I want to be able to cover all of my deductibles. Obviously, I'm going to the doctor all the time, hospital bill, all that. And I ended up not having to come out of pocket with anything thanks to that account, you know, and using that money that grew tax free to be able to pay for medical expenses in a year that I knew I was going to have a lot of them. That is the perk, y'all. Like, there's so many benefits to these different types of accounts. So you have to really just understand what they are and how to utilize them to your best ability. Okay, let's close out the conversation with this more existential question, because oftentimes I think when we talk about financial independence, early retirement, one of the stupid questions that I get from people, and I'm sorry, it is a stupid question. It's like, but what are you going to do after you retire? Okay, that shit drives me insane. It's like, is your entire life like literally about this job? Because if it is, I feel so sad for you. Like, you need to go out and touch grass and go get a hobby and go make friends, because there's so much more to life than sitting in a fucking cubicle making money. So I want to hear from you, Adriana, and then you will, Wilma. What is your post-retirement life look like? What's the plan? Are you like moving to a international destination? Like, are you going to write a book? Like, what is on the schedule?
First thing is I am not working. That's the goal.
I know that's right.
I'm not working. I am doing the hobbies that I want. I'm learning other languages. I am spending time with my child. Hopefully, he's not, 40 by the time I retire, right? So I don't have major plans of moving from the country or doing anything like that, but just having the time to travel, spend time
Mm,
with my family are big ones. And Janice, it's so funny that you bring that question up, because one that gets to me is the one that, but why do you want to have your kid well off, right? Why he needs to work, he needs to learn the value of money. And people get triggered by the fact that you want to leave generational wealth for your
yeah,
child and not have him go through maybe what you went through or your parents went through.
yeah,
So it's the same response when, the same type of reaction with that question that I get with the one that you just shared, which is, oh, but what are you going to do when you retire? What are you going to do with your time? I have amigas, I have jevas that I'm onboarding in this journey, and we're going to go on yachts, and we're going to be drinking our coffees and doing brunch, and we're going to having the best time, right? We're
yeah,
going to have time, which is the goal.
yeah. I love that. And yeah, I want to say something about what you mentioned, but I'll let you go first, Wilma. So what's your post-retirement life look like?
I'm 100% confident that Adriana told me about this investing class so I could join her.
Yeah,
No
you
lies.
need okay, we need rich friends to twerk on the yacht, to perrear to Bad Bunny in our 40s on the boat
Yes.
because we retired. Like
Please
that's the
tell your
goal.
amigas, talk to your amigas about
If
finances,
you love
bring
your
them on the
friends, you will
journey.
teach them how to retire early.
Yes. I love you, Wilma.
Besides that, I usually I like to travel. I mean, people that know me, they can never figure out where I am. So I am telling you that I'm gonna be everywhere because I deserve it. So why not?
Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. I think this is such a revolutionary conversation. And so I think it's important to um just really understand like the power of spreading this knowledge, y'all, right? When you talk about how people are triggered by wanting to build generational wealth for your kids, I think that speaks to the unhealed money wounds that are such a hallmark of our community. Our people were not they were not raised to learn how to build legacies. They were just raised how to work hard, to grind, right? And to pray. Si Dios quiere, right? And at the end of the day, like there is a lot of power in faith and mindset work and all these things, but we got to do shit, right? Like the intentionality that it takes to retire early, to build wealth, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intention, right? And so I think for anybody who is thinking about becoming that cycle breaker in their families, I want to remind you that this is not just about having money in the bank. This is about changing your bloodline. Okay. This is
Mm,
about giving your kids the opportunity to thrive instead of survive. Like that is the whole point. I don't want my daughter to have to pick a career because it makes a lot of money or marry somebody because they're going to give her financial security. We want the next generation to have this ability to become their most fully expressed versions of themselves, and honestly the only way to do that is to take away the need for the basic things that we struggle to provide, right? The foundation, the house, the food, the financial security. So
oof.
let people be triggered, okay? This is about them. This reminds people that nobody taught them how. And that's why this platform exists, because you're listening to this, you hear this information, it should set off something in you that's like, I want to go and learn more about this shit. So for people who are listening and they're like, I want to go learn more about this investing Jevas situation, tell us where we can find you, how you work with folks, and what like who's the best people for you as far as clients. Like who are you really really eager to help with the work that you do?
Sure. So I can share, right? If you're a Jeva with a 9 to 5 income and you're trying to find what it is that you're going to do with your money, how to manage your money, and how to learn how to invest, if you're living in US or living in Puerto Rico, come talk to us. We've opened the doors to our one-on-one coaching program where we will teach you just that, how to take control of your finances and how to build wealth. And like we said, we need more Jevas like you in our community retiring early because we need to all be retired by what, 40. So that the way you'll find us is through Instagram, right? Send us a DM if you'd like more information. You'll find us at Investing Jevas. So Jevas is Jevas. And the other thing that we're offering are personal finance webinars for corporate folks. So if you're a corporate girly and you know your employer can benefit from a personal finance webinar, and it's something that your people within your company are interested in, then reach out to us. We have a whole catalog of webinars.
I love that. Wilma, for la gente que no son boricua, que no entienden qué es una jeva, tell us in your words, what is a jeva?
Yeah.
Love this.
So being a Jeva means you are a badass, you are confident, and you know your worth. Like when you say que te sientes como una Jeva, when you feel like a Jeva, you are at your best, whether it's mentally, physically, or emotionally. And that's what we want everyone to feel, our community to feel. We want them to feel empowered and confident while building wealth and investing because we all deserve to live in abundance. So let's be jevas and jevos.
Okay. I love it. I love what y'all are doing. Keep up the good work. Thank you for empowering us, especially la comunidad boricua, porque es tan importante que nosotros tenemos esta información. If you love this podcast, if you love this show, share it with somebody because this can be the spark that lights someone else's financial freedom journey. I know for me, podcasts were the thing that literally set me in motion. And now I'm going to be the first millionaire in my family, right? And so you have no idea how powerful information that comes from mujeres who sound and look like you that you can relate to can be for somebody in your circle. So thank you for tuning into the show. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. You can find out more about Investing Jevas on Instagram. We'll link all of their resources in the episode show notes. And until next time, stay poderosa.